Kia ora and hello, friends. Welcome back to the Restoring Connections podcast. Matthew Dawson here. I am so delighted to once again be joined by my darling wife, Cora, also known as Aurore in France. How was that? Did I say that properly?
Perfect.
Okay, so as per normal on the Restoring Connections podcast, we are talking about healing and strengthening your most important relationships. We're talking about personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, and healthy boundaries. All four of these things working together to build trust and to protect your most important relationships to get through the storms of life, right? Because that is going to happen. If a relationship is precious, it's important to you, it is going to get tested. You are going to go through circumstances that are going to be stressful and painful. And the question is, have you got enough trust in the tank? When we are going through something and I am feeling out of control, this child is driving me nuts, this job is driving me nuts, this mortgage is driving me nuts, this weather pattern that just obliterated something, this big loss of money, whatever it is, the propensity in my heart to blame someone else for what's going on in my world that I do not like is going to be huge. And the closer you are to me, the more likely it is that I'm going to blame you. The more powerful you are, the more influential you are in my life, the more likely I am to blame you for whatever it is that I'm going through. And how do I mitigate that? Through trust. When I want to blame you for everything, the question is, have I got enough trust towards you, and have you got enough trust towards me for us to be able to make it through that storm, right? And these are the things that we've learned really help to build trust and resilience into a relationship. So we invite you to come on this journey with us as we are learning. In part one of this two-parter, which is if not through shame, then how? We talked a lot about what is shame, what is shaming, and what does that produce in our lives? What is, why is that even a go-to behavior? What is it like what are we hoping shaming will actually produce? And then what are the long-term effects of a culture of shame, between two individuals, between a team, within a family, an organization, whatever. And lo and behold, none of them were good. To my surprise, all of the long-term effects that Cora told us about with shame are really bad. There might be some help, like in the moment, it might help to get this person to stop doing this thing that I want them to stop doing, but the long-term effects are really unhelpful, the things that we do not want around in our closest relationships. So, you ready for part two? Yeah, awesome. Locked and loaded. So we're diving in. In that first episode, it was really wonderful. We were kind of laughing afterwards about the fact that I was actually, and you probably picked up on this if you listened to the first one, I was actually personally pretty impacted by a particular thing that Cora said, and I'm like, what? Like, oh man, that sounds really hard. I don't know if I want to do that. But then I'm thinking, that is actually what it would take. That's what it would take for me to break out of my go-to patterns around shame. Right? Because we're all, the feeling of shame is common to all of us. Our go-to responses to feeling, insecure, to feeling afraid, to feeling inferior, how it manifests is different depending on our personality, culture, and I thought, for me to go to another level of wholeness, that's what I would have to do. So if some part of this episode or that last one makes you feel uncomfortable, yay, great. That's good. That is a good thing. And that's coming from me. I don't like making people feel uncomfortable. I'm a yes man. I love making people feel great about themselves, but I can't deny it. The honest truth is usually good things happen on the back of feeling really uncomfortable. And how we respond.
And it doesn't take away from the value of joy and enjoying each other. It just means that both going hand in hand.
Yeah. Definitely. It's like working out. I did legs this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm wobbling around.
While I was sleeping.
Yeah, I was pumping my legs. Shiloh was helping me. She was cheering me on. Yeah, she's awesome. She wakes up early with me and
so
and
sweet.
cheers me on. And
She's so cute.
it actually really helps. Well, she's
so cute.
there's something about and I think particularly her femininity. You just can't deny that when a beautiful young woman, she's almost 7, she's 6, a beautiful woman, beautiful girl who you love and adore is kind of looking at you and saying, "You got this, man. You can do this. I believe in you." It's just like, I can do this.
She's super encouraging too. That's that kind of.
She's the best.
When she wants to be.
So good. Okay, so now we're going to shift tactics. We're going to start looking at what to do differently. Yeah. Right? Okay, then we're really getting into the meat of, okay, it's like, all right, Cora, awesome. Shame sucks. Shaming sucks. No, actually, shame. Let's get this right.
Shame is to be
embraced. The
embraced.
feeling of shame is
what
to be embraced.
What it leads me to.
I'm working my way to be able to say it's my friend. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. But, we're embracing the feeling of shame as being a really important part of life, right? So it's like, okay, I'm on board with you, that I don't want to engage in the messaging of shame around what shame says about my value.
That's right.
And I do not want to engage in the behavior pattern of shame, which pushes me towards self-preservation, hiding, isolation, damages the trust of my relationships. So, if not through shame, then how? Right? Okay. Question number 1? What's the alternative? Yeah. Right? We talked about how shame promises to fix something. That's why we go to it. Yeah. There's a sense that
it hides away the failure. Yeah. It makes us feel safer from looking at our failure.
Yeah, but it does so in a way that's very short term.
Yes.
And it does so in a way that damages our relationships in the process.
And doesn't address the issue anyway. Doesn't address the problem.
Yeah. So what's the alternative to that actually does work? If the need is for connection, the need is to feel valuable, but the need is also to be willing to embrace what I could really do better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that's the other alternative is we never speak the truth to each other. No one ever gives me any feedback. There's no grading system. Everybody always gets an A+. No one ever tells me my behavior sucks or that my behavior is impacting them. Yeah. But there's no growth in that. Yeah. So how do I still? What's a more powerful way for us to be willing to help each other shift our behavior and grow without shame?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, Danny Silk talks about healthy shame.
Oh, go Danny Silk.
And he's Legend. One of our mentors, and we love him. He talks about healthy shame. There is unhealthy shaming of someone in their mistakes, publicly bullying them, all that kind of thing. That's really unhealthy. But there is a healthy mother's look. When that child is trying to put their hand in the cookie jar when it's not time for cookie time, which we have a time at which you are welcome to help yourself to cookies. But there's a time at which right before dinner is not a time that you're welcome to help yourself to cookies. And Shiloh will know it is the look. It's you feel bad about what you're about to do. You feel caught. Oh, yes, I'm less than again. Yeah. You'll feel it, but it's not that unhealthy. You're realizing, I'm doing something I've been asked not to do. I'm being a bit naughty. But just doesn't mean I'm going to wallow up in shame at that moment and hate myself for the rest of my life. There's a healthy look at each other that's going, hold on a minute. So it's healthy to feel a level of there's something that I'm doing that's not good. It's more guilt. It goes towards guilt. It's like I'm guilty of having done something wrong or about to do something wrong. And that truly just means that I have healthy guilt. But shame says there's something wrong with me, and if we engage with that too long and too hard, then the message of it is unhealthy. So how do we...
Can I just highlight again, and I think Brene talks about this, we talk about a lot, the difference between you and your fundamental value and identity and the behavior that you just did, right? So we're addressing... There's something wrong inherently with me. I'm not worthy of love and connection, so something's wrong with me. Versus
I've done something not great.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I make mistakes.
And that's,
I'm human.
There's got to be enough in the tank inside of me that is settled about my own sense of belonging and worthiness of love to be able to absorb that thing I just did.
Was unhelpful.
That was not cool.
That was unhelpful.
Somewhere between unhelpful and downright,
hurtful to somebody.
Hurtful and
I've hurt
awful.
somebody. I've hurt
somewhere
somebody.
between there. Like it's like a withdrawal. So I've got to have plenty in the tank to be able, around my personal sense of worth, to be able to absorb that. If I don't, then my world falls apart.
Yeah.
Right? Because okay.
So remember, if we just I talk about friendship really because I'm saying, if I treat shame like the enemy, I don't want to feel it.
Yeah.
I will do everything I can to avoid that feeling. I will do everything I can to never experience that.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous.
Yeah.
So I make shame my friend as a feeling because I expect it. I expect to fail and feel terrible about it. And it's funny. The more you make that feeling your friend and you're curious about it, go tell me more, friend shame, you're here again. Here you are. Then the more you can deal with it quickly. Yeah. And it doesn't actually lead you to unhealthy patterns of shaming others or avoiding, like we said, pleasing people instead of actually being truthful to ourselves, or moving against, hurting, bullying, and etc. So the more we make shame our friend as a feeling, the more we disengage from the message of shame that says you're not good enough. Yeah. So the behavior of that. So essentially the alternative to engaging with shame in an unhealthy way is to first welcome it and then get curious and get truthful about what you feel with the other person in the moment of shame. That takes practice, let's be honest. Yeah. I don't think I'm nailing this every time in my own life. So if you're listening to this and thinking, Matt and Cora never deal with shame and never feel it, never deal with it, never engage with it, you are sadly mistaken. We truly feel shame, sometimes engage with it in a healthy way, and catch ourselves. So every conversation we have, you and I, where it's hard, somehow we're getting caught into that cycle. We're working through it, and it's hard. It's painful. We have tears sometimes, and it's
and we've got 4 kids.
Yes.
So that we wake up into the reality that our kids need perfect parents. Yeah. And they don't have them. And that is just a breeding ground for shame. If we let it, we have to wrestle that to the ground every single day.
And remember, I think actually, possibly you who is listening right now, I probably feel shame more than you do. In my life, shame is a big deal. Yeah. And I feel it consistently a lot. I think possibly more than maybe other people feel it. It's something I've had to battle through quite a lot in my life.
To you,
and that's why it's been really interesting to me to explore this. So we're not standing here saying we've got this and we're better than anybody else, but we are aware of it and we're working through it. Yeah. And so in that, what I want to say is the alternative is to be truthful with a person if you can in real time. So if you start feeling not good enough, but you find yourself skipping the step of acknowledging that feeling in yourself and going to, I feel terrible, I'm going to get away from this confrontation right now and I'm just going to avoid it at all costs. Shame is speaking to you. Yeah. You need to go and find shame and figure out why it's there. Yeah. Instead of avoiding shame and avoiding the person and avoiding the conversation. Yeah. So if that's your go-to avoidance, then be truthful in the moment. What are you feeling? Think about what you're feeling. And if you have the courage, that is the antidote, by the way, the courage to say, in this moment, I'm feeling less than. Find a way to say it. I don't do it perfectly. I'm not the greatest communicator. Usually tears come or just something a little bit intense comes in my behavior, my body language, but I try best I can to stay in a, right now, I'm not feeling good about myself. Yeah. And I
totally shifts the conversation. Like when I've done that in our conversations where it's getting a bit heated and I say, do you know what? I'm feeling actually pretty insecure right now. Yeah. And I'm feeling afraid. Yeah. Right? Just sucks all of the fuel out of that fire that was about to erupt, just sucks it right out. Yeah. Completely reorients things. Yeah. And it puts what I'm doing is I'm actually giving you a choice. Yeah. I'm saying this is the truth of what's happening inside of me. And you get to choose, do you want to keep interacting with me, giving that reality? So I'm actually giving you power. Yeah. Right? Yeah. In that moment by giving you the truth of what's happening inside of me. And when I'm feeling shamed, or insecure or afraid, the last thing that my self-defense mechanism wants to do is give away power.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what's necessary.
It's emotional exposure.
Yeah.
And that is, Brené Brown describes it as being in the arena. You suddenly are in front of a whole crowd of people and you're feeling really vulnerable, really seen. Everybody's looking at you. Every
person, every authority figure, every friend, every ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, they're all in the arena. Your mom's glare, everyone who ever made you feel small in your entire life is all in the arena
all there.
in that moment.
Everybody's looking at you. And she has this great metaphor for each person and where they're sitting and what that means. And you can look into that more. We won't go in details into that. But essentially, you need to be able to have the courage to dare standing in the arena where everybody's looking at you and still emotionally expose yourself.
Yeah.
Can you do it? Probably don't want to, because shame is telling you it's the stupidest thing you could ever do.
Yeah.
And shame is telling you, go and hide. But leaning into truth, right now I'm feeling not good. Whatever it is that you're feeling, I'm not feeling good about myself. And here's why. This is happening, and I think this means this, and I feel this about myself. As you said, deflates everything. Anxiety lowers because truth is being told in a kind way, best possible. If you can do it kindly. If you can't do it kindly, go find shame. Go make shame your friend by yourself. Go have a big cry. That's what I do. And I've learned in my life, I just need those big cries. Usually they come once a month at a very particular time.
Interesting.
I think I feel blessed to be a woman for that. I have these emotional release valve moments every month where, my period's coming, where I can have a huge cry and it's okay.
And because we're so connected,
I
usually go there with you.
Yes, it's going.
Right? Like we go there, we tend to go there together because I need that too, actually.
Yeah.
I need probably roughly once a month, or maybe at least a few times a year.
Yeah.
I need to just hit rock bottom emotionally and just grieve how brutal life actually can be. Right?
If you don't have that capacity, if you don't have the tools and the capacity to do that, then that's why you're afraid of shame. Shame is so scary because you don't have a way of dealing with shame. So I think, to me, speaking the truth in love is also a scripture that I like, because I really like that scripture. Has helped me in life, and I've not done that very well in my life, but essentially that's a goal I have.
I respectfully disagree.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to speak the truth to you in love right now.
I mean, often I haven't done it well, but often I've learned to do it better on the back of it, because I have that aspect of me that's more like, how do you say, I'm pretty direct in my communication style, because that's how I was raised, and so I'm not always the best at speaking the truth in love, but I know that's my goal, and therefore dealing with the shame, the right way, helps me go back to that truth of the antidote to shame behavior is speaking the truth in love in the moment, if I can, or going back to deal with the pain until I can speak the truth in love.
And with that, for you, like whether I can or can't, I'm thinking that probably depends on how clear you actually are within yourself in the moment. As to this is our very first point in our entire 32-point curriculum that we walk people through is I know what I'm feeling and why, and that's for me. Like that's been my battle. Right, is to even know what in the world I'm feeling. So we're
so good at ignoring our feeling, and you have positivity as one of your top strengths. The Strengths Finder.
I know when I'm feeling good.
Oh
yeah. It's like I'm feeling good, and I
Yeah.
can tell you 15 reasons right now why I feel good. But when I'm not feeling good, it's very confusing for me sometimes.
Because it's probably part of the side of your strength you're maturing is to welcome all emotion, not just the positive ones. And so it's a hard thing to do, but it is the antidote, essentially, to your first question. It is the antidote to engaging with shame in a way where I disconnect and separate myself. And really, if you think of that metaphor from Brené Brown, stepping into the arena, leaning into an uncomfortable conversation, speaking the truth in love, saying, right now I'm not feeling very good. Here's why. Is there anything, could you help me with this and help me feel better? Are you willing to just being courageous to admit you're not feeling well and expressing your need vulnerably? And I know what will come next. People will go, it's not going to work. I've done this, it's not going to work.
I'll get eaten alive. If I make myself that vulnerable, I'll be seen as weak.
The lions will come out in the arena, and I will surely die.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I want to remind us, we're talking about the most important people in your life.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the guy at the petrol station that, you know, did something that made you mad.
Yeah.
And, you know, and going there to this level. It's not what we're talking about. Though, actually,
amazed.
Okay, can I tell a really quick story?
Please.
I know it's primarily about you, but I'm just excited about it.
I wanted stories. This is great.
So I have permission to, I won't give any names, but I do have this person's permission to tell this story, because he told it to me the other day when we were, you know, working through some things, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is gold. So he, I won't go into too much detail for the sake of time, but there was like an arrangement with a particular company about something that was getting some work done for him. I think it was on his house or something like that. and it didn't go, the wheels came off, and the employee or the manager of this particular business was pretty upset with him. And like you, was a bit of a natural on the DISC communication thing, high D, dominant kind of communication style, right? And and the guy who I'm talking to said, you know, I've been thinking heaps over the course of this year about what you guys talk about around vulnerability, and because this guy who I'm talking to, he's not a high D communicator. He feels things quite deeply. He's probably a little bit more prone to feeling a sense of insecurity. His go-to is not to go T-Rex. Like his
probably please and appease would be his method of dealing with shame. Exactly,
but but a lot has happened in his heart in the last year in the journey, and he's a lot less prone to just go into doormat mode because he's cultivated a sense of personal worth. And strength, not in an arrogance, but just in the kind of worth that you want your kids to have about themselves. You know what I mean? Sense of belonging, that kind of stuff. So he's like, okay, then how? And he tells me, I just told the guy, can I be honest with you about how I'm feeling right now? And the guy, like, to this guy who's the manager of this business, and he says, you wouldn't believe what he said. He said, yeah, go ahead. And he goes, I'm feeling a bit insecure. I'm actually finding the way you're communicating a bit intimidating. And I really feel like I did my best with this. I have a tendency in my life to just kind of always be the nice guy. And I feel like there's times I get taken advantage of. And I don't want to be taken advantage of, but I also want something that's fair between the two of us. He said the guy just completely stopped in his tracks and said, okay, and it just completely shifted the conversation, and they agreed on a 50-50 taking responsibility. This guy was telling me, he's like, I can't believe how awesome that was. Yeah. So yes, we are talking about your most important relationships, but human beings respond to this stuff, man.
Yeah, I remember what we said in the last episode is this is where we're heading as humanity. I really believe that this is going to be more common. It is not yet in the business world.
Yeah, but there's no guarantees, right?
Yeah, but only because it's not quite yet like that in our own families, in our own ways of dealing with one another, because we're still undoing some of that shame story and narrative in our own lives as human beings. And we're born into a way that we were brought up into this world with the shame behaviors. So we're undoing this. And I think that, as I said, I finished the last episode by saying I was sitting at the table with at this Dare to Lead workshop with people who are crying about this, saying we need this in council.
Very important people.
Yes, we need this in council, we need this in government, we need this in places. This is really unlike business talk. You know, it's not, we don't talk about these kind of things in business professionalism kind of context. So I think somehow it's becoming more normal to do this.
Yeah, we're setting a new pattern. Yeah. Right? Okay, and that brings us to the second point, which is, excuse me. And the second point is, the second question that I want to get you to speak into is how do I break the pattern, right? I'm only one of how many people? We were talking about this the other day. How many are there? 7 billion people on the planet now?
Do you know,
I feel like honestly nobody really knows. Right.
Anyway, I don't remember.
Yeah. Our kids were like, Dad, there's like 12 billion people on the planet. I was like,
know.
no, 8 or something like that.
I can't remember. We
But
didn't quite agree on
these
the
days,
number.
I kind of trust their perspective on
Yeah,
this probably
probably.
more than my own. But I'm one of, let's go with 7. I'm one of 7 billion people. How do I participate in breaking a pattern? And, you've got layers. You've got my culture.
Yeah.
That comes with a language. And it's so much like there can be things, you've spoken to this before at times within French language. It almost seems like the whole language is geared
wrapped around
to express, to like guide you towards expressing, it being negative and shaming. And, and so we've got your culture, your language, your family experience, your work setting, all that kind of stuff. It can be very disempowering in its feeling, but talk to us about getting the courage and what does it actually take, to break patterns of shaming in those relationships that are important to you.
Yeah. Well, breaking the pattern of shame for me is therefore agreeing, as I said, agreeing that it's there.
Starts there.
Agreeing that I don't feel good enough.
Yeah, I'm not going to get to the point where shame is not a part of my life. It's embracing that. Yep.
And welcome that thought as often as it comes and being aware of it, and just setting
a distinction, a differentiation.
Start that again.
Okay.
And really making a distinction between I am good enough or I failed. Different.
Right.
I'm not good enough, sorry, or I failed.
Yeah.
These are the different ways that you can engage with shame. Funny you just brought up the French culture by example. There's something that's really interesting. Think about French culture. Not too long ago, I'd say 15 years ago, in France, it was very normal and really something you should expect that when you turn the TV on, you would have a naked woman for a yogurt ad,
right? Just
eating her yogurt bare breast,
the carrot sticks. We were in the supermarket. When we first got married.
Here's Matthew, just a beautiful, lovely little Californian young man coming to France for one of the first time going to the supermarket. And over the beauty aisle, he's going, why is there an enormous, very long panel of carrots in the beauty aisle, Cora? And I looked at him.
2 carrot sticks.
And I looked at him and I said, oh, darling, you're so genuine and earnest. These aren't carrots. This is a bare bottom. These are 2 legs.
She went into she all of a sudden became the Queen of England. This is a bare bottom. You're like, that's a woman's butt and her legs. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh my God, this is a huge woman's butt and legs. Like 3 meters across up on the wall in a supermarket.
This is one of the most hilarious moments in our relationship where I was like, oh wow, like Matt's so not used to this. But why is it that we are really okay to shame in our language in the way that we do and really okay with nakedness? It's actually quite connected as I thought about it.
Pray tell.
Because somehow we expect people to withstand shame really well.
Right.
Therefore, we're not afraid of shaming in a sense, which is not so healthy, but we just go there and go, well, that was wrong what you did. And that's exactly what the teacher expected of me and expected me to handle shame. Essentially, you're going to need to handle shame in your life. Now, the way she went about it was probably making it harder for me to handle shame. And she probably could have taught me way better tools than ripping my page in front of everybody. Yeah. But essentially, there's this expectation in the French culture that you must handle shame. So anyway, I'm making this distinction, this connection.
So there's a strength there and a vulnerability.
Yes,
yeah,
yes. The way we go about it isn't really great. And we can learn as French people to handle that. But there's this expectation that nakedness exists and get used to it, being bare, being naked is normal. You shouldn't feel shame. Yeah. You should feel shame and handle shame, and you should deal with shame properly, is really what the French culture sort of brings out of you. Yeah. And I certainly am a product of that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
But in that, so that's really what I would say to handle shame well and to break the pattern of shame is to really do the hard work, practice, like any skill, like any other skill, practice feeling the shame, recognizing and feeling the shame, and getting to the bottom of why. There's no better way to break the pattern of shame, then to pause. As you said, is having that
Oh,
pause.
in part one.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You said, pausing in a conversation, asking yourself, especially for somebody, as you said, like yourself, who is not used to feeling that.
Yeah, it takes work to dial into what am I feeling, how would I name it, and exactly why.
Yeah.
What have I experienced?
Yeah.
That if it's just like peace washes over me, even if it's like, it doesn't change the situation.
Yeah.
But it changes my own sense of feeling out of control and like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with me. I go, oh, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this and this is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that really definitely breaks the pattern. Now, I know that it's difficult because in a business context or in other places, like we described, sometimes it's inappropriate to share how we feel. So you need to pick your moment and pick your person, pick your context, and know if there's enough trust. And then sometimes, like your friend, take the risk. Even though you don't think it's the right context, take the risk and see how it goes. If it's the first time,
he said,
can I do this?
Can I share with you how I'm feeling? He knocked on the door and the guy said, sure.
That's beautiful.
What a win.
Yes. And so the more I engage with the feeling and recognize that it's there and I express really well that I'm experiencing that, the more I'm likely to break the unhealthy shame behavior patterns in my life.
Okay, awesome. So you're bringing us back to that, because if you're aware of what you're feeling and why, then of course the next step is much easier, which is what will I do? Yeah. Right? Yeah. I am feeling afraid. I am feeling insecure. I am feeling unworthy. Now what will I do? Do I want to sabotage the relationship I have with this person in front of me as a way of dealing with that? Or maybe is there a healthier tool, right? Do I have the clarity within myself right now? I'm just feeding back what I'm hearing. Yeah. Do I have the clarity within myself right now to be able to offer truth about what I'm actually experiencing? Yeah. If I don't, pause, time out, right?
Go cry.
Go cry, or go drive down the road and drop some F-bombs and scream your head off.
Or write a letter.
Or write a
talk
letter
to a
or
counselor.
something like that.
Go see a professional.
Yeah.
Help you work through the feeling of shame.
Yeah, get to the point where there's a YouTube clip called Above the Line, Below the Line.
Yeah, we love that.
Oh man, I think it's the something Leadership Institute. I can't remember who did it, but if you Google it on YouTube, it's so good. It's a really, really simple video. Basically, it helps you understand if you are in self-defense mode, and there's, we're not psychologists, there's way fancier terms for all this stuff, but if you are in self-defense mode, you are going to defend yourself. Yeah. You're not going to get orange juice from an apple. You know what I mean? It's like, if that's the mode you are in, that's what's going to come out. So you got to do whatever it takes to be able to get yourself back into a place, like you said earlier, where you're curious, where you're willing to learn, where you're willing to be emotionally exposed, right? Yeah.
And so I really have some steps that I use when I feel unable to talk to the person because the feeling of shame is too overwhelming and I don't have self-control to be kind. I just go have a huge cry, but the huge cry isn't just mope around. It's I really do engage with I hate myself right now, or I hate the other person because they make me feel like I'm hated. Yeah. So therefore, make me feel like I am to be hated. Yeah. I'm not worthy of being loved. I engage in that. I cry as much as I can. For me, emotions are really important. So my kinesthetic side is really strong in the way that I process things. So I really engage in that emotion. And at the end of that, I don't just leave it there. Yeah. At the end of that, I pinpoint. And only can I do that once I've engaged in the emotion. Yeah. Every time. I pinpoint what exactly factually happened that led me to feel this way. Yeah. And then now I'm in a good place to have a conversation.
Yeah, so good.
These are my 2 steps.
Yeah, so good, so helpful, so practical. Yeah. I love it. It makes me think too, as you're talking, I'm going, if you're the kind of person that wants to, it matters to you, the level of connection that you have with the people that you spend, for example, most of your workday with. Because that's where many of us spend way more time with the people at, our colleagues at work than we do with our own family members. Yeah. That's true for a lot of people. Yeah. You might be thinking to yourself, if you're the kind of person that's like, none of this really, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Put me in any context. I've got a thick skin, hard forehead, and I'm good to go. No problem. Awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Like, part of me is like almost envious. That sounds really cool. Okay, for the rest of us, you know, or if you're the kind of person that's like, I am really looking for a high standard of connection, trust, mutual respect, right? Honor to be flowing in my relationships. As you're listening to what Cora's saying, I'm hoping you're thinking to yourself, I might need to be quite picky as to who I work with. I might need to be quite picky as to who I partner with, who I marry, you know, or you might be going like, flip, I wish I'd thought some of this through beforehand. You know, I've got to be I might need to be quite picky. I've actually written a document called 4 Tough Questions to Ask Before You Join a Team. And if you're listening to this and you want to reach out to, you know, flick us an email and we'll fire it through to you. But it's like, if that's you, it's like, I do not want to work in an environment where where I'm constantly feeling like my vulnerability is not wanted, is not expected. My truth is being resisted. Well, you might need to get really good at asking some of those questions at the front end. Yeah. It's like, how do you guys handle this kind of thing around here? Yeah. If I feel this way, is there room for that? Yeah. Give it to me straight, you know, at the front end.
And as I said, Kyla Corbin, she's a Dare to Lead facilitator, and she's doing this Dare to Lead workshop for leaders, particularly in the governance sector, you know, that be government or council, businesses. Yeah. And if you want that kind of culture, you can get it. Yeah, totally. You've got to want it. You've got to want it. Not everybody does.
Yeah, and you might have to look for it. Yeah. Yeah. Or you might have to build it. Yes. Maybe you need to, if you're bouncing back and forth, maybe you need to have the courage to start your own business. Yeah. Where you get to set that culture that you want, you know? Yeah. And FYI, side note, reach out to us and we'll help you. Okay, so that was number 2. And lastly, we'll bring it home with this. How do I break the pattern? And actually, we've already started to dive into this a little bit, so this is a good segue. Yeah. How do I break the pattern of shame and shaming when I'm only half the relationship? And you know what I mean? It's like, I got no pull here. Yeah. I want to go in a different direction, but I'm not sensing this person wants to go with me. I want to be honest about what I'm feeling, and this person is giving me feedback like, I don't give a, you know, about what you're feeling, you know, or whatever. It's not working. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and you just said, I mean, we laughed about it, but it could be very real for some of you guys. Maybe you married someone or maybe you're in serious relationship with someone who
started a business with someone,
or in serious partnership,
or you have a child who you know who you can't just go, okay,
I'm not going to be your mom anymore. That's not going to work. So you might be experiencing that with your most important relationships, may they be work related or family related. As you said, and as we started touching on, you might need healthy boundaries. Yeah. See, I can love you and have healthy boundaries with you. If you don't believe you can have both love and healthy boundaries, then the only way forward is separation. Yeah. But it is possible to have healthy boundaries and to love somebody and to still have somewhat of a connection with someone, even if they strongly disagree that this is the way to communicate with vulnerable communication skills, by example. It just might mean you have less intimacy. Remember last episode we talked about the love and trust issue. Now it is possible you won't have a huge amount of trust.
Yeah, so you default down to the foundational layer, which is love.
But some people stay married for a whole life like that and still have beautiful moments and still have a lot of love to go around. Yeah. Probably not as much trust. So sometimes they're the kind of couples who live lives not super synced. You know, one goes and does business a lot and the other one stays at home a lot.
And we've had moments like that.
And we've had moments like that.
Like the trust isn't there. I gotta go back to.
We get a little bit emotionally disconnected, but we really are committed and we show up for each other when it's really needed so that we don't divorce, we don't separate. And that's possible. And again, look, no one is perfect. Yeah. No one's going to nail this perfectly. So you need to agree with where you're at in a relationship. If the other person doesn't want this, and I want to empathize with whoever is listening to this and might think, wow, that's not a pretty picture. And I'm going, go and grieve that.
Yeah.
Go and have a huge cry session, because shame will be speaking to you there.
Yeah,
And
totally.
say you have less than, you are separate from, you're not good as good as this couple that you're listening on this podcast right now. Sounds like they have it way more than you do, etc. You'll have all these moments of shame that speaks to you about what you don't have, about scarcity, about not enoughness. But grieve it. And as you grieve it, you might find that the other person wants to hear more about your ways of wanting to do things. Because when you've grieved it, maybe you'll bring the conversation again in a way that's more heard or more listened to you. I don't know. Try it again. Try it again when you've grieved. Try it again when it's going better in your relationship. Try it again when trust is a little bit, built.
You're talking about making peace with the fact that you're not in control of the other person.
No.
And the step one, I want you to change, right? I do.
Yeah.
I want you to change. I want you to be more like me. I want you to stop doing that thing that's driving me nuts.
Yes.
I want you to agree with me or whatever. I want you to change. But ultimately, I'm making peace with the fact that I'm not in control of this person. I don't even want to try to be in control of this person. Tried that. That made us both miserable.
Doesn't work.
Right? And so first step is to make peace with the fact that you are in control of you and I am in control of me.
Yeah. And if the other person doesn't change, make peace with the fact that they don't change with healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
I can't get into boundaries today because it's a whole other episode or do the course, because we have a whole course on it. But essentially boundaries just say, where can I get my needs met other than with this other person? I cannot be dependent on my happiness is not dependent on this person changing or doing what I want them to do.
Yeah.
If they don't want to engage in this kind of relationship where we're vulnerable with each other, if they keep shaming me, then establish healthy boundaries and say, I would rather not have this conversation again where I feel shame. I would rather we saw a counselor. Are you willing to? Yes or no? If this person's willing, then great, you won. You managed to bring this relationship in a healthier place where you do. And by the way, everyone I listen to on this topic who are researchers, Brené Brown, whoever, Kyla Corbin, they have all spoken of going to counseling, of going to see a professional,
so good,
of learning from someone else on this issue.
That's humility.
And so invite others to go on this journey. Your most important people could go on this journey with you. And I've done that with you before, where I've said, hey, this conversation, I don't feel safe to have at this point together alone. I would love someone else, a trained professional or someone that we both trust.
So hard to hear.
Yeah.
But it was so helpful, so fruitful.
But I did it with love. I didn't to accuse you or blame you. I did it. I'm now not in a place to keep having this conversation. I'm not feeling good enough to have this conversation. I'm in too much pain. So I'm going to go and look for the help that I need. Are you willing to do that as well? And people often say yes. What I find doesn't work is when one person is disappointed with the other and feels shamed by the other, and they shame back. Or what's wrong with you that you're not going to go and see a counselor? Can't you see shame is a part of your life and you're shaming me? Can't you? It's the attack, the blaming, or the something's wrong with you response, which is engaging in shame behavior. That doesn't work. It never seems to lead anywhere. So don't go there. But stay vulnerable with good boundaries. Yeah. That's just all I can offer.
And healthy boundaries, like you said, we've got a whole course on this, and there's great resources out there, for sure. But it's just so important to remember it is hard work. Yeah. There is no, punishments are simple, right? I just hit you, or I just shout at you, or I just whatever, no creativity.
Tell you what you can or can't do.
Exactly. Yeah. No creativity, no intelligence, nothing. A healthy boundary, you've got to really dive in to the reality, because the truth is there will be some areas in this relationship where trust is actually there to some degree, and other areas where it isn't, right? I don't need I probably don't need absolute, maybe you do, but most of the time it's I don't need absolute space from you. I don't need to be on another planet from you. There's certain areas where trust is there. There's other areas where it's low. And so I've got to dial into how do I keep myself in a healthy space given that reality. It takes work. It takes creativity. And it's probably a good place to end. I hope you're listening to Cora and you're thinking to yourself, holy smokes, that would take so much courage.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. This is going to take a lot of courage, and you don't get, you don't get insane. Like, I'm learning to rock climb with my brother, right? Because I love my brother. I had never really had any aspirations to become a rock climber, but I love spending time with my brother. One of my favorite people on the planet, right? He is an avid rock climber. He loves me. He wants to do the thing he loves with me. Yeah. And I love him. So I'm getting into rock climbing. Guess what he got me for Christmas? My own rock climbing harness.
Yeah.
Right? So when we, his courage in that space is miles beyond mine. Yeah. But every time we do it, I'm getting a little bit more courageous. I'm learning to trust the gear. The gear is going to catch me. Man, that first time was absolutely terrified. I'm still at the point where most of the time, I think this is a good metaphor actually. Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't intended to share this, but most of the time we're driving to the rock climbing place, and I'm mostly just dreaming of the drive back where we both didn't die. Right? And that's I'm being honest.
I'm not gonna picture you thinking that when you're going rock climbing.
Right.
That's great.
And now I'm bringing you into it. You're like, gosh, okay, I should have been a lot more anxious than I was.
It's okay.
But that's a little less every time we go. Yeah. We've probably done it like 6 or 7 times now.
It's practice.
And it's getting a little bit less,
And
that
idea that you could die is less and less a reality, essentially, is what you're saying. You're aligning to the truth that actually, I think.
But I could die.
There's always a chance.
And the reason the metaphor connects is that this could be the end of this relationship. Yeah. You do not have a guarantee. You make yourself vulnerable. You say the truth. You might get fired. Yeah. This person might decide they're done with you. Yeah. This is the risk you take. I always say, to have a healthy relationship, you've got to risk the possibility of having no relationship. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because if it's otherwise it's Gollum with the ring. Or otherwise it's I'm clinging on to this thing. And so, I just think it's a good place to end there, and just kind of the exhortation, this is going to take the development of courage. And you start, just like this story that I told, that at this point in my journey, something like that would actually be very easy for me. That wouldn't be scary at all. For him, this was a step into courage that was terrifying, but he did it. Yeah. And the next time won't be quite as scary. Yeah.
And that's the thing. There are many relationships I have lost intimacy with. Yes. Not love. Yeah. But intimacy with. You know what's happened often with people is they're not willing to lose intimacy. Mm-hmm. They're too afraid of losing intimacy. Yeah. But that's someone's gift to give to you. You cannot control that. However, your love is your choice. Yeah. And
so you lose it all. Yeah. You lose intimacy and love because you're too afraid
of losing intimacy.
Of losing the intimacy. And actually you've got to embrace that in order to keep love. Yeah.
You know what restoring connection is about for you and I? Is you are in charge of your love. Like Danny Silk says, it's it's your choice to love someone, and you don't have to lose that. Even if you lose intimacy, you don't have to lose.
My love is my love. Yeah. You don't get to decide what I do with my love.
There's a lot of people who have chosen to disconnect from me almost completely and have no love and no intimacy that I can still love and show honor. And I talk about them fondly, and I show them love whatever way that they let me, in whatever open door that I have with them. So am I restored in my connection to them? In my heart I am. Yes.
You're not carrying the bitterness towards them.
So life is good for me. I don't know how they feel, and I will never have a sneak peek into that because they're not opening up. Yeah. But I know that my heart is at peace. So that's what it looks like to not engage with shame, is to just continue to respond in love.
And the more powerful you feel about being able to exercise self-control, right? And exercise authority over your love. The less it makes any sense to reach for shaming. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because it's just, why? Yeah. It's not there because I'm pursuing a different goal. It's like, I don't need my sledgehammer. I'm cooking a meal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because we see
getting ready for a banquet over here.
Yeah. I'm shifting. I'm orienting myself rather than reacting to the fear of being unworthy. I'm moving towards building intimacy and connection in the most important relationships in my life, and I'm aware I'm in the arena, and sometimes it's going to be messy.
Yeah, but the key point here is I'm willing to lose something.
Yeah.
I'm risking it all by loving this person. I'm also embracing the fact that they might reject me.
Yeah, totally. Because if you're not willing to risk that, you basically guarantee that you'll lose it.
Yeah, because you can't control them.
All right, friends, that was part 2 of If Not Through Shame, Then How. Hopefully we've answered that pretty well. I mean, we could, there's a huge topic, so we've just kind of scratched the surface. Thank you so much, my darling, for joining me. Means the world to me.
My pleasure.
Thank you. It's so much better than doing a podcast by myself.
Good.
And so I hope that you guys have enjoyed that, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Awesome.
We hope you found the conversation and stories on today's podcast helpful and insightful. If you want to go deeper, Restoring Connections offers online courses that cover key topics like personal responsibility, proactive care, powerful communication, and healthy boundaries. Go to www.restoringconnections.nz for more information. This podcast is funded by generous supporters from all over the world. Please consider supporting by going to the Restoring Connections website and hitting the Contribute button. By partnering with us, you're helping to provide mentoring, workshops, and training to others who are also restoring their connections.